Hi everyone, I'm here today to share a few practice tips for Köhler's Etude 13 this week. I'd like to start at the end. So starting with the Coda section, the Coda of the piece is where you can see più vivo, the very last section of the piece, and that structurally would be the final wrap-up section. And I'm going to use a technique that's called rhythmic distortion that you could apply any passage that has straight 16th notes. This works great. I've written out in 4/4 a version of this that you're looking at now. What I've done is I've added a quarter note and I'm moving the quarter note over. So in example 1, it's at the beginning, and then in example 2, I've lengthened the second group of the group of 16ths, then the third, then the fourth. I have the metronome on 70 beats a minute right now. I'm going to keep the articulations consistent with the original. So in this case, all slurred and then tonguing the downbeat of the next measure, which is also a B flat. So that would be like this. And number 2, I'm still keeping the B flat on the downbeat like it is in real life, but I'm interjecting a quarter note. That sounds like this. In that case, what revealed itself was that the second note of each group is an A flat. I maybe wouldn't have noticed that if I hadn't done this exercise. The third grouping, lengthening the D. So now the last group, which I think is the most useful for this particular passage, would be lengthening the last note. By the end of this exercise, I've actually played the full thing at tempo. I've just interjected notes. So this technique works great at a passage where you get completely frustrated and you can't concentrate anymore. And by taking a second to change your thinking and reimagine the passage, it really will help you be more efficient with your practice time. The next section I'd like to talk about is back to the beginning. And because this is a theme in variations, what I did first was analyze what happened and where the theme was repeating. So the first 3 lines of this etude are the presentation of the theme. And you can see that it's 4 plus 4 grouped into 8 measures of an A section, then 4 plus 4 into 8 measures of a B, and then we have the reiteration of A, but slightly differently in this case of the theme, up an octave. And I found all of those places where A repeats, and that is in measure 25, 41, 57, 73, and the very last statement is at 89. That's the last statement before the coda. That final statement does repeat. A, B, and A prime finally happens again for the first time since the theme was presented. So the next thing I did was I analyzed this melody. I actually reduced it to what you're looking at now, which is a reduction. And I've added these things that are called dependency slurs, which is sort of a quasi-Schenkerian analysis way to analyze a melody. And I've showed the dependency, meaning that from the beginning of this melody, we have an upper neighbor, B to C to B, and then the A flat, fa, is a passing tone between sol and mi, and then the second iteration moves a little more quickly as we descend to do. The B section is actually in the key of 5. So it's in the key of the dominant, in this case, B flat major. And that's why in every statement of the theme, we only have an A and then a B, and that ends on the dominant, which compels us to move on to the next variation in this melody. So by reducing this theme, I made a structure that I can then play along with myself. So here's what I did. I recorded an A section and a B section, and I'm going to play the theme along with this so you can hear what that sounds like. now, in this section, I'm going to use this recording to play through the variations. This is variation 1 at the Chiomoso. Play the recording again and do the next 16 measures of this piece. It's a really fun way to get that theme and variations idea really into your practice and make it more interactive, as if you are improvising each variation as it occurs. A few last ideas. Sections like measure 72, when you have an ascending, almost chordal passage. The way I practice this is forwards and backwards. And when I play that kind of on a loop, it really gets into my ear and into my fingers. Another thing I wanted to talk about is the final statement. This would be the last statement of A prime, which is the line above the coda. And in this section, a useful thing to do would be to switch your fingers ahead to the next grace note. In this case, it would be switch, switch, switch. So you're switching to the next grace note ahead of time, just like I recommended for last week's Etude, the anticipation technique. The other thing I wanted to point out is there are a couple spots where you do need to plan your B-flat thumb usage. Specifically, I would recommend taking your, not sliding back and forth on your B-flat thumb, but instead choosing a place where your thumb happens to be up, where you're going to go back onto the lever or off of the lever. So using usually a C or a G to switch your thumb. And you can see I put a question mark. You could go back on for a short period of time and then back off a line below. And then the last thing you can see in this, that I've taken a little bit of chordal analysis, and I figured out where 5 goes to 1, a 7 chord, a flat 2, some very distinct passages, which are not always easy to find in flute music. You have to sort of mix and match, and so you can see I've bracketed a couple chords that are laid out there clear as day that might help you as you're learning the final section. So I hope this helps.